Hi, welcome back to the Haven community inside the teenage mind. In this podcast, we uncover and dive into the teenage mind to talk about things that are relevant to teenage society, mental health, and other things that revolve around our culture and community today. In this episode, we specifically look into American film culture and its effect on stereotypes and athleticism and intelligence. My name is Nathan Lim. I am the founder of the Haven community.
My name is Shamiha Ahmed, and I am editor-in-chief of the Haven community.
And my name is Katie Trieu. I'm the Chief Financial Manager at the Haven community. And so I just wanted to start off by saying that I grew up in America, so I've been watching all these TV shows, primarily from networks such as Disney, that reach a very large young audience. And I've noticed a pattern among characters and stereotyping where intelligent or bright people are often labeled as nerds or geeks, and they're made to seem unappealing, and everyone always picks on them, and it just they just make them into more unappealing characters that are picked on throughout the show and are often pictured as antisocial. And then oftentimes the more popular kids are always jocks or people who are less focused on academics. And then so I just feel like watching these shows growing up, it made me not want to be like the kids who are always picked on. But it never occurred to me that, or I didn't know what the reason why they always made the non-intelligent kids more popular and desirable to be.
So yeah, same. I've like so many Disney movies portray characters that are jocks and more athletic. Like they make such a huge difference between like the jocks and the nerds. They would get like I guess more attractive actors to play as the jocks. Um, and it's so stereotypical, like the blonde athletic football players versus like the nerds who have like their hair covering their faces and they're super shy and they wear glasses and they're always studying. Like it also made me um just feel like I like if I wasn't popular then I wouldn't do well in high school, pretty much, because that's how like all the movies are portrayed. Like the nerd is like super lonely all throughout high school, and like the jocks are just having the time of their lives. But like after getting into high school I can see that like studies matter more. Like everything is based on studies. Like for college you have to like, it doesn't matter like how athletic you are. I mean it does, but like at the same time your academics should weigh more, and it does. So like the way Disney movies portray this is like kind of conflicting with how it is in real life.
I totally agree with you, Shamiha. The way like these like top industries portray these characters, like it was always black and white, night and day between these characters that were there. Um, like for example, like the jocks would not be the nerds, and they wouldn't like there was no blending either. Like the jocks were the jocks, and then they were the most portrayed, and the nerds were like the extra and the back and the behind, and were them there were their own group as well, but the more emphasis that these shows were putting on were the jocks. And I feel like um these shows, they I feel like what there needs to be is like this end in stereotypical like beliefs, because there is also that idea of race and genders that also get tied into the topic of intelligence and athletics and things like that. So there are all of these like stereotypical like tags that are put on each character based on appearance and identity and things like that, which is really like a misconstructed view of the way we should view the entertainment industry.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I just feel that since so many young kids are watching these shows that air on big networks like Disney, they could be they could be being misled, because in actuality academics and studies are what determine your success in the future for the most part, unless you are solely focusing on athletics, like going to like a professional team. But most people don't plan to do that. So by leading kids to want to focus on athletics and being popular and being a jock in high school, it could be misleading them to not being able to be successful in the future because they won't be focusing on studies, so they won't be able to get into like colleges or like universities that they want to go to where they can earn a degree to like become a professional at a career. So I just feel like these shows are like misleading kids by doing this, and that's why I feel that it could be detrimental to our society.
I definitely agree with that. Like all the time in movies, it's like the character who's like being portrayed as a jock, the main character, most of the time they're on like scholarships or something where so basically it just always shows um like the character is basically like gonna pursue or go into like some like the professional team like you said um in like the future, but most of the time people don't do that, and it's really like it's like most of the time people actually do like other jobs. And I'm not saying that athletics aren't an actual job, but like, it's just misleading because like in the movies they show that the jocks are always like playing their games and just coming back barely doing any schoolwork, when that's literally not the case. If you don't have the grades for it, you would be kicked off of the sports teams in any school. Like they value, like if you're not able to keep your grades up, then you're not able to do the sport. So they barely show that aspect in movies, and they always just shame like the nerds and like the geeks, and they like label them as that, when literally it has nothing to do with that. Literally it's just high school. That's how it works. It's just you focus on your academics and everything. And yeah, I just think that it's misleading that the jocks are portrayed as like literally the best characters. Like they have the most fun high school career, and then like they always get into like their dream school, when that's not how it works if you don't put an effort into your studies. So yeah.
Yeah, on the misleading like aspect of it, like it can definitely be misleading, and also like the impact that it has on its viewers too. There's that like example of just being able to like self-reflect on like who you are compared to the people that you see on the screen. Because like for me, like what I always thought about when watching these shows was always like, oh, like I aspire to be like that cool person, while not being able to also realize the importance of also doing well in academics and working hard. Because that aspect, that mindset of working hard and working for who you want to be, I think is the most important part in any kind of character development. And um, that idea of just having a jock on the screen being able to be portrayed so well as they are, to be misleading to the people on the show in terms of having people like self-reflect on who they are and who they want to be. I think that's a really like risky and like not a good way for people to think as viewers, because because people are also ashamed of their personal insecurities. There's they body shame themselves, they look at themselves, and there's that kind of like personal, how should I put it, it's like that personal kind of it's just personal body shaming and just being scared of who you are and like who I am.
um I totally agree with that. Like the message that they're trying to send out is really misleading. Like I don't know what other word to use, but um definitely like not only is it the jocks and the nerds, but it's also like in movies they always portray like the pretty popular girls and compare them to like the smart nerd girls who are taken advantage of. Like um they're bullied sometimes, like they're treated so much worse. Like they're tripped. Like the nerds get, well, like the popular kids trip the nerds, or like at the cafeteria they like accidentally like drop their food on them, or like or some other thing. And it's just wrong, because like literally being pretty and popular is like, sure, you need a social life, but like it's, in the movies they portray it as something that has much much more value than it does in real life. Like looks and popularity can only get you so far. Like you really need to have a good mindset and just, you know, um, be a good person and use your academics to like pull through, you know. But in movies they just make everything surrounding the pretty popular girls and like the athletic and muscular jocks, and they always end up together. And the jocks are not the jocks, the nerds are always like, oh, I wish I could be them. Like literally, I hate my life so much. I'm tired of being like the nerd who's always like um looked down upon and never has any fun, is always like working and just never having fun. And so like in movies they always, like not always but most of the time, they have like these super super drastic makeovers of like the nerds who like strive to be jocks. Like I know a lot of like female characters, they always go from like from not to hot. And it's just like that mindset is just so wrong, because literally beauty does, not beauty but like your popularity and your social status gets you places, but ultimately at the end of the day it's your academics and how you are as a person that does everything. So yeah.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I was actually going to mention like the whole makeover trope as well, because I've seen it so many times. And recently I rewatched the movie Geek Charming from Disney, and it was actually the guy, but he basically went from like not to hot, as you said. And it really upset me because he mentioned how he was comfortable in his own skin, how like he wanted to be liked for who he was. But the popular girl, she forced him into like having a makeover, and then he noticed that that day when he came back everyone like actually liked him, but it was only because he changed his looks. He still had the same personality, but just like the fact that he changed his looks was enough to get attention from everyone. I just thought that was a really toxic like way of showing how to be liked, when in real life it doesn't really work like that, and you shouldn't just strive to change your outside to get people to like you.
I definitely see that because that is probably like how majority of our society thinks as well. Like whenever we look in mainstream media and even today's kind of modernized way of viewing entertainment, we have like these outlets on like Instagram and Snapchat and TikTok and YouTube, and people are looking up to the models and praising them to be like looking like goddesses or like literally like divine characters or people. And we need to realize that we can't aspire to look in a certain way to be popular or appealing, but rather we need to focus more on just being able to grow internally, because there's so much focus going on in outer appearance with people either glorifying themselves and putting that's their character upon themselves like that on social media, or just being able to like hide behind the screen or face like shame because of who they look, of what they look like, or who they are, or what they do. It's just really like it's just so misconstructed and so like it's toxic really of how like we see that media and how certain like people can act a certain way because of what they look like and who they are, and the way people respond to that, like to the way people respond to feeding on to things like that and helping those kinds of things gain prominence. I also think that that is really like toxic.
I definitely agree with that. Um, but also, it just makes me sad how, like, especially Disney and, um, like, in movies and films, how it's portrayed. Like, kids who are growing up, like, they all probably want to be pretty and popular, and they're just gonna strive to be like that. And like how they do in the movies, they would want to like change themselves for like to be people who they may not be, just to fit in and just to like, live the high school life of their dreams, but like I just feel that everyone should be able to express themselves and like be who they are without having to change um, themselves for anyone or anything. So honestly, I just hope that more movies or in like the film industry, they start focusing on that, because I know now that like there's like a large theme going on about like loving yourself and self-love, like over Instagram, in I'm pretty sure in films too. But it's like that's an overarching theme in a lot of different industries. So I hope that that starts going into films, so that kids and teens who are growing up don't have to feel like they have to change themselves and change who they are in order to fit in. So, yeah.
I definitely see your point, and I definitely totally 100% agree with you. Because, like, also, like, when I was younger, like, I grew up watching these movies. Like, kids grow up watching Disney, they grow up watching these childhood shows, no matter how old they may be. And I would always grow up, like, with that mindset too. Like, I would be, like, scared to be able to show, like, my academic studies or like study and things like that. That was like also like there was a time in my life where I would be like, it was a fear. Like there would be those moments where like I just don't know, like like how, like, because like people want to be loved and they want to do things that are important to them, but with the mainstream media growing in terms of not like glorifying that idea and theme, it's like self-conflicting thoughts and like that idea of confusion and just not knowing like where to go.
I definitely agree with what was said. Like, we should focus on our own self improvement and loving ourselves at our own cost, and not at the cost of like adhering to other people's standards. And so I just wanted to bring it back to say that I wish that like films that, especially since a lot of young people see them, I wish that these films would start more realistically like painting what high school looks like and like the teenage years look like, rather than like explaining like, oh, like the social hierarchy is like so black and white. I wish that they would start to like, like more realistically picture it, because like smart people can be sociable, and like people who play athletics can also be interested in things like science or academics. Like it's not so black and white like that a lot of people think.
Definitely. And I think one thing that we definitely got covered here in this discussion and definitely got the point across was that we do need to realize that who we are is perfectly fine as is. Like, we just need to focus more on being able to, one, love ourselves, first of all, just not having that inner shame, and to just being able to grow as a character, to that one that has that idea of just being able to be encouraging and just being there for one another, rather than focusing more on what we believe people idolize. And we don't want to be we shouldn't be we shouldn't be seeking a source for idolization. We should just be idolizing ourselves internally. And we did cover that these movies may have these kinds of stereotypes and mainstream media, but like we can watch those things, like they can be very entertaining as well, but we just need to realize that what we get out of it is does not have anything to do with thinking about who we want to be and the misconstructions of our identity, but rather the fact that we should look up to being our better selves and building our character. That concludes today's discussion of just talking about American film culture and stereotypes on inner identity. Be sure to look out for more episodes around us. Our next episode discusses our comfort zones and how we can be able to get out of our comfort zones. You can learn more about us and our organization at thehavencommunity.net and our Instagram at haven_community. You can contact us by emailing contact@thehavencommunity.net, and be sure to check us out and be able to hit us up. Thank you, and we'll see you in the next episode.